Good morning, everyone. My name is Miss Garrison. I teach upper school photography, and today I'm going to be taking a photograph of a plant outside in my backyard, some blackberries that I bought. And so right now I'm setting up my tripod. All right, so I've got my tripod set up. I'm going to be taking a photograph of a still life outside. So I need a tripod to maintain the sharpness of the photograph. I've got my camera, I'm gonna turn my camera on, and I want my photograph to be as sharp as possible with as much detail and information. So I'm gonna tell you what my settings will be. I have an 85mm lens on the camera. I'm going to go ahead and change the settings so I have it on manual, and I'm going to go in. I won't know what my shutter speed's gonna be until I'm outside, but probably I'm gonna try and see if I can do, well, we gotta get outside first. My ISO was high because I was doing a photo shoot indoors, so I'm gonna go in, and you all know, if you're in my photography class, that we want that ISO to be 100. So I'm gonna go in and switch that ISO down to 100. And you also want to make sure that your auto ISO sensitivity control is off. If you find that your ISO is jumping up really, really high, then that's not a good thing. So if you're going and shooting a party, that's one thing, but if you're trying to do a still life photograph that's really beautiful, you want to give it some time and give it enough time for the photograph to take information in the camera, but the ISO setting is going to help maintain the crispness of the image. It's going to be really, really clean, and that's the thing that we want when we're taking a fine arts photograph. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to mount my camera. It seems to be stuck. So it's about 8:20 in the morning. It is overcast outside. So those are some good things. Oh, Scout has joined the party. She's giving herself a bath. And remember, you want to make sure that your camera's secure. You don't want it moving around, so use the dials on the tripod to ensure that it is nice and secure and not shaking. If you can feel your camera being able to move, then your tripod isn't tight enough, okay? So remember that we have those nice bubbles in the tripod, and they let you know if your tripod is level, okay? All right, let's go downstairs. Okay, so from my setup, I have my camera set up, I've got my tripod. In order to get my tripod as close to the plant as possible, I have it so that the two legs are facing this way as opposed to this way, which makes it so that the camera can't be as close. So this way the camera can get closer. I was inspired this morning as I was taking the trash out. There was a nice little bee flying from here back and forth over here. Unfortunately, he has disappeared. Okay, so I've got my tripod. I'm going to bring the camera up and adjust it a bit. And you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna switch to live view. So a lot of you will have the live view setting on your camera. That's gonna help you when you're taking your photographs so that you don't have to move your head down into the viewfinder. You can look on the live view setting instead. I don't recommend it most of the time, but when your camera's on a tripod, it definitely makes it a lot easier. So I think I want this to be a portrait as opposed to a landscape orientation. So I'm just gonna change a few things. So I've Gotta bring the camera up a bit higher. I'm gonna tighten it. And I'm way too close to my subject with the lens that I have on. Still too close. Go ahead and turn this off. I'm gonna go get a different lens and switch the lens. I'll be back. Okay, so I grabbed my 35mm lens. So I'm switching to that. I don't know why I grabbed the 85. That's good for portraits. The 85 makes it so that you can stand at a far distance from your subject and get a close-up picture of your subject. But the plant doesn't need to be super far away from me. Okay, back to live view. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So we're gonna move the tripod closer. And scoot it back a bit. I'd like for it to be a bit taller. So I can adjust the tripod legs and then readjust the camera now that I've got the height from the legs. And when I'm looking, I really don't like this background, but I like the fence a bit more. So I may have to move the plant in order to make sure that I'm getting the fence background as opposed to all of this. I also don't like the, yeah, that looks better. Okay, so I have my aperture on f/16. And I am checking with my exposure bar at the bottom to see how long of an exposure. It looks like it's going to be about a 1 second exposure. I'm going to take a test shot. My ISO is on 100. I'm going to look at the photograph. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to look at the way things are set up. So there's this giant leaf that's in the way that I don't really want there. So I'm going to try to manipulate that a bit, see if I can, oh, we lost a petal. Okay, maybe that leaf's important now. Okay, so back to live view, so I can see the composition. And so on my camera, it has this little itty bitty like red square, and that is helping the camera figure out where it wants to focus. So I'm going to move it over because I'm kind of wanting it to focus in this lower quarter of the image. So while I do that, I depress the shutter release just pretty gently. I can also check my aperture. Looks pretty good. My shutter speed. So I'm going to take the photo and I can hit the playback button so I can see what the picture looks like. I like that way that it looks. So I am gonna take a few more, maybe a couple at a few different settings. So I might make the exposure a little bit longer just to see what happens. It's overcast outside because it is overcast. So it's good for me as a photographer. Okay, so that made it a little bit brighter because I exposed it for more time. So I'm going to make it a little bit faster to make it a little bit darker. So it's still at 1/1.6. The that's still very, very slow in photography time, despite the fact that I called it faster. Yeah, so the exposure is a lot darker. So I'm getting multiple photographs to look at, different plates that I can use for adding some on top of the other for burning and dodging as well. And I'm gonna turn this off. Okay, so I decided that I wanted to try and get something a little bit closer up. If we look at the previous photos, it's a little bit further out. So I'm gonna switch back to live view. And I'm gonna try that. I was also looking at the fence posts in the back. I found that because I was shooting, if you look at the fence posts, they're kind of straight, but if you change the angle like that, you can see that they kind of lose their perspective, or their perspective is slightly warped. So I'm going to switch over to this. I've got my aperture at f/16. I'm gonna slow this down. I'm gonna move a little green, give it some time to focus, take the photograph, and then I want it to focus on a few different areas. Yeah, so I would need that leaf in focus too. And remember to press the shutter release, give it a second for the camera to adjust to take the photograph. And I think my favorite is this little berry at the top. So I want to make sure that's sharp as well. So I'm holding down to allow it to adjust. It doesn't seem to want to. Oh, there we go. No. Let's see if that did it. So I'm checking my photo. I always tell my kids in Intro to Art, just because it looks good when it's teeny tiny on the back of the camera doesn't mean that it's in sharp, and I can see from here it's not when I zoom in. So I might need to pull my tripod back slightly. The lens might be a little bit too close. So I'm gonna see if I can get that berry. I just saw something fly by. It looks like the bee is back. It's a little bee. We'll see if I can get him. So I'm gonna rotate my tripod a bit. Oh yeah, there he is. We just need him to land on a flower and turn the camera off. So something else that lots of people don't really know about is that when you're taking your photographs, you can play with your white balance. And so for some of you, your white balance might be set through your menu settings, and you have to click up and down with your arrows to the toolbar until you find the WB for white balance. On my camera, I can set it using my fingers, so this is going to be tricky because I need both hands to do it. Okay, I'm going to show you how to change white balance. I had to get crafty with how I can hold the camera and use both of my hands without a tripod for the camera. So I'm going to hold down on the WB button here. Hopefully you all can see this. Here I'm rotating my white balance. So if you look at the camera screen, you can see how blue that white balance is. That wouldn't be appropriate for outside. Neither would this one. That one's looking a lot better to me. That's auto. A preset, Kelvin. Basically what you're looking for, that one is shade, where it doesn't look too blue and it doesn't look too yellow. It's flash, direct sunlight, back to tungsten. I think shade is a little too blue. Cloudy. I think I like cloudy. Okay. So that's going to help with the color balance. Which means that if your photograph starts out looking like this, you have less editing to do in the computer after you're finished with the shot, because if I'm change my white balance if I'm shooting on the wrong setting. Sometimes I'll see students where all of their photos look like this, and to most people they might not spot it immediately, but that photo definitely has a cast of blue to it, and that's not a good thing. So I'm gonna keep flipping. I liked that cloud, and it is cloudy outside, so I think that's fair. Looks like it'll be sunny soon, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop.